Well, if there was ever any doubt about the government's intentions in passing the 26th Constitutional Amendment, the recent amendments to the Army Act, the Practice and Procedure Act, and the Number of Supreme Court Judges Act of 1997 lay all such doubts to rest. Now, perhaps the most disconcerting element of all these amendments has been the rush with which such amendments have been passed. Now, in the recent past, we've heard political parties and parliamentarians give sermons about how laws passed by the parliament ought to be given a degree of respect and how such laws have been struck down in a routine manner in the past. Nonetheless, these notions are predicated on two basic assumptions. One, that laws passed by the parliament ought to be given a degree of respect because the parliament represents the will of the people. And number two, such laws need to be respected because these laws have been passed after a detailed, deliberative, democratic process. Nonetheless, we have seen in our context that both these assumptions have been shaken in the past few months. Firstly, we have seen that the parliament which has passed all these amendments, the credibility and the legitimacy of that parliament itself is suspect, given serious concerns about the integrity, the fairness and the impartiality of the 2024 general elections. Secondly, and perhaps more importantly, we have seen that there has been no deliberative process which underpins these legislative changes. Now, in other nascent democracies, in Colombia, for example, and this is an example that I have often cited, in Colombia, we have seen that the Colombian Constitutional Court has struck down a number of laws simply on the basis that those laws were passed without sufficient democratic deliberation. So I think the lack of democratic deliberation alone justifies these laws being struck down. Nonetheless, we see if we delve into the substance of these laws as well, we see that these laws are symptomatic of the government's desire to emasculate the judiciary. Now, with the 26th Constitutional Amendment, for example, we saw a desire to handpick a Chief Justice. We saw that the Judicial Commission of Pakistan, which will now appoint judges to all the superior courts of Pakistan, has the members of the government will now comprise a majority of the Judicial Commission. And now we see the concern which people had expressed earlier was that the government's members will have a majority on the Judicial Commission, and these members will then select judges across Pakistan. Now we have seen that the government has inexplicably increased the number of Supreme Court judges from 17 to 34. So the number of Supreme Court judges has been increased by 100%. And now the Judicial Commission of Pakistan, which comprises the government, on which the government now has a majority, will now select 17 judges of the Supreme Court. So the concerns about independence of judiciary, which people had expressed at the time of the 26 amendments passing, are now coming to light. The other important aspect of this amendment is that, contrary to the Parliament's claims of it reclaiming its powers or of it reclaiming its space, we see that the Parliament is once again ceding its space. We see the changes which have been made to the Army Act. We see that while the tenure of the Army Chief was earlier 3 years, that tenure has been extended with a provision allowing an amendment of further 5 years in the tenure of service chiefs. So what this suggests is that the Parliament is not as supreme as we were being told, and what this demonstrates is that the Parliament's strings are being pulled by the powers that be. This amendment also shows that the recent legislative amendments, the recent amendments to the Constitution and to our laws are less about reclaiming space for the Parliament and more about consolidating power where it has always belonged.